Welcome back, listeners. We have a good episode for you today. We're going to be talking about a very important church number, this shrinking median church. It's something that has been noted, but Dad, you and I are going to give some implications of what's going on.
Just before we recorded this, I was virtually in Nigeria for a global conference on Christianity in the church. I think it was on church revitalization, but we touched on a lot of things. And the question that came up from one astute member of the audience, I know it's from an African nation, but I don't remember which one. He said, "Tell me about the shrinking median size of the church that I hear from you and your son."
Well, if he's listening, he's going to get a pretty good explanation on this episode. But before we jump into the subject matter, I want to thank our sponsor, Rooted. They've been with us a while, and we want to just say thank you, Rooted, for sponsoring today's episode. And you need to go check them out. I'm sure if you've been listening to the show, you have heard and you know. But just in case you don't, Rooted can help you create a discipleship culture that connects your people and leads to ongoing life change. This is a sustainable way to launch groups. It's a great way to engage people with discipleship. It's a curriculum as well. It's everything you need. So go to experiencerooted.com/church answers. Again, experiencerooted.com/church answers. They got some stuff for you there, some free resources, as well as some explanations as to more of what Rooted can do for you.
Great folks at Rooted. Goes all the way back to my relationship, first of all, with Eric Geiger, and then with Earl Roberson, and then with Michael Kelly. We just have so many good contacts there.
Yeah, great people. Good, solid creators behind the resource. Cannot say enough good things about Rooted.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to talk about a number, Sam. And if you are a Three Dog Night fan, late 60s, early 70s, you know one is the loneliest number. And we're not going to talk. That's the name of the song. Number one is the longest number.
No, I'm well aware. Just the generational divide here. I went to the Count at Sesame Street is where I went. So.
Okay. And I went to Three Dog Night. By the way, this is really important. Why did the group call themselves Three Dog Night?
I don't. Is this a dad joke? I don't know.
No. This is a truism. They have Australian roots, and it often get very cold in the outside of Australia. And if it got really cold, they would get three dogs to cuddle up to them while they were outside, and they called it a three-dog night to keep them warm.
Well, better than a three-cat night. I'll just say that.
They wouldn't help you. They'd just run.
Or in the case of Florida, a three-alligator night. That's not anything anybody wants.
But I love talking about just what this is really two church numbers, or it's a series of church numbers from 137 down to 60. I love talking about these numbers where we can focus just a bit of time on one really small encapsulation of statistics on the church. And that's what we're doing here. And we've been calling it the church number. And I realize maybe singular is not the best case in this particular episode, because we're going to go from 137 to 60 and with some numbers in between. So let's get to it.
Yeah. Just in 2 decades, we've seen a 55% drop in the median church size. This is significant. This is something that we should be paying attention to. The median size keeps shrinking. So, Dad, when we say median, what do we mean? Little pun there.
Well, we don't mean mean. We mean median.
I know for those of you who are into statistics, I'm glad you got the joke.
It was a bad joke. Median is when half is on one side, half is on the other. So
midpoint. It's the midpoint.
It's the midpoint. Half of the churches are 60 and under. Half of the churches are 60 and over. And I don't know what 60 is, if it's, what side it falls on. I never quite figured that out with the median, but half are under 60, half over 60. If you're 60, I don't know what you are.
You are the midpoint is what you are.
You're the median. That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. And in a technical sense, Dad, there is one unit that is the midpoint. Sure. Statistically. So there is one that would be in the midpoint.
That's why I talked about one being the loneliest number by Three Dog Night.
It's exactly right. What does this mean? What is happening? So we've got we've got this church size. So the typical church in the year 2000, so 25 years ago, was 137 people. And I think when people think of churches, they think of churches 1, 2, 300.
Right.
And for a lot of people, they would say, oh, that's a mid-sized church, a church of 250, a church of 300. I've heard that language. That's a mid-sized church. It's not a big church, it's not a small church. But from a statistic, and I understand the perception of that, and people aren't wrong to say that. But from a statistical standpoint, those are very large churches.
Oh my goodness. Yes. When you're looking at 50% of the churches being under 60 in average attendance, to get up to 250, I don't have my data with me, but I would estimate that that's in the top 20% would be my guess. We could find out for sure, but I would guess that would be the case.
Yeah, so let's talk about why. So we've gone from 25 years ago, a typical church was 130, 140, 150.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're down to 60, 65, depending on who's counting and how, but right around there. Why is this happening?
Well, like many answers, there's not a singular response. One of the things is attendance overall is declining. So it's when attendance overall is declining, everybody gets a part of that shift. Everybody gets a part of that decline. And the overall decline in national church attendance has pushed the median number down, down, down. Just for a quick review, 2001 fast forward to 2010, 105, 2020, 65, today, or at least in 2023, 60. So there's declining attendance, and that means there's going to be a lot more smaller churches. And if there are a lot more smaller churches, that means the median, the 50%, are going to be on one side. And what you have noted quite often is you've done a lot of, you've done studies on all size churches, but you've watched fairly carefully and really been prophetic about what's happening with mega churches. There's still a lot of concentration of attendance in the larger churches, despite this shift.
Yeah, just some distinguishing points here. One, we're talking about worship attendance, not membership. So that's a key point. Membership numbers are going to move more slowly because it takes a while for the membership number to catch up.
Yeah, usually it takes about 200 years for a dead person to get off the roll.
yeah, you're saying it more succinctly than me. So that's the first thing. The other thing to note here is that trend with the mega churches. There are fewer mega churches than there were, let's say, at the peak of around 2012. It's tough to know exactly when, but it seems, according to the data, that the megachurch movement, in terms of the number of megachurches in the United States, peaked around 2010, 2012, somewhere in that range. And there have been fewer and fewer megachurches ever since. But there are still more and more people going to the largest churches.
Right.
So the megachurch movement is waning, as I have written about in The Surprising Return of the Neighborhood Church. This is a baby boomer phenomenon. It was, megachurch very popular with your generation. Did a lot of good, but as the baby boomers are coming of age, the megachurch is beginning to wane. So
and that's so polite, as the baby boomers are croaking.
You can say it however you want. My point is there are still, because baby boomers are more consistent attenders typically, there is still a larger concentration of people at the largest churches. It's not like we're seeing a filtering down effect of, wow, the megachurch movement is waning. That must mean smaller churches are growing. Not necessarily.
Right.
We're still seeing that median church size hang right around 65. Now, if we start doing what we're supposed to be doing, then I do believe that you're going to see that figure go back up again. But it's going to take things like outreach, evangelism, discipleship, the Great Commission kind of stuff in order for churches to grow.
Just the basics. And then when we start looking at what the pandemic did, or better stated, what the pandemic accelerated or it caused to go at an even faster pace. Can you say a decline going at a faster pace? I guess you can.
Yes, but it can decline at faster rates. Yes.
The pandemic accelerated the decline that was already taking place.
That is true. Yes, it was an accelerant to all trends, economically, religiously, uh, some may argue politically. It was an accelerant for a lot of things, and church world was no exception. But let's talk about what the median church looks like. So let's get a window into this world. Let's get a picture of what this church of 60 looks like.
And just a point of somewhat self-congratulations, if we can say it with all due modesty, I really don't think any organization understands the breadth of smaller churches like we do. There are a lot of people that understand smaller churches denominationally. They work with smaller churches on consultation by consultation. But Church Answers has really been a place where we don't ignore the larger churches. We resource and work with a lot of larger churches. But at the same time, we try to embrace and work with the smaller churches as much as we possibly can. And we know that world. We know it so well now.
We do. When you and I were talking about the way that we manage our company strategically, a key point of that strategy was we cannot ignore the massive market that is that church of 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Now, I will admit it is hard to serve churches of that size because guess what? They don't have the financial resources. So it's not like we could submit a big proposal, a big dollar proposal to these churches and have them just embrace it. Some can, but most cannot. And so
Right.
there are limitations. There are financial limitations at these churches. There are volunteer limitations. Let's be very clear. Just because you shepherd a smaller church doesn't mean you're lesser of a leader. It just means you have to be a different kind of leader because you're working with a different set of resources and a different set of people.
Yeah, finances are definitely tighter. We see that, Sam, again and again. When we talk to churches, they say, hey, can you do a consultation with us? And our answer typically is yes, let's talk about how we can do it. Yeah. For example, I'm working right now with or you will be too, with the church in Miami. We think we'll be it'll be another one of our 7 or 8 ongoing consultations, that more than we've had ever at any one time. And one of the first things I had to ask them is, what do you want? And let's talk about your ability to be able to have us come. That doesn't mean that we're going to have this great expensive endeavor, but it does mean I had to be sensitive to this church's budget. I had to be sensitive to what they could do. And we're going to make it work. But I can tell you this, if this church had been 10 times the size that it is, we would not be having to ask some of the questions that financially, this is how it will work.
Yeah, we'll work with any church and we'll work with your budget. That's what we do. But that is the reality of a church that has 60 people. On occasion, there's somebody there with deep pockets. They've got a healthy budget, but typically a church of 60 people, when you do the per capita giving, it's what any other church has. What about $30? Is that the weekly per capita giving?
Yeah. Weekly per capita overall is about 35. So it might be about 30 in those cases.
Yeah. So you've got no staff typically at a church of 60 people, maybe one other part-time person, one full-time, one other part-time. A lot of churches that size are bivocational because of budgetary constraints. So you have a heavy reliance on volunteers. You have tighter finances with less margin in the budget. And this is something that's often missed and probably one of the biggest reasons why churches close. It's because facilities are often too big. So these churches of 60 people are in facilities that could hold 600 a lot of times. Not all of them, but a lot of times they are. And 60 people just can't keep up that kind of facility maintenance.
These churches with these large facilities, there are multiple issues. One of the issues is it doesn't look like anybody's there. If you have 60 people in a 600 seat sanctuary, it is vacuous. Secondly, it's hard to keep up the maintenance of those facilities because the resources are so small. Now, I want to tell you what I'm saying as a mindset, Sam, not in all churches, but I was talking with the church that is the pastor. I was talking with the pastor of the church and some of his elders, and they wanted us to do a consultation, and we started talking about it. and the church was averaging, I think, 60 people. I think just right at our number here. And so we started talking about, okay, how are we going to make this work? Guess what I found out? They had a savings account of $500,000. And there's a story behind it. Getting into the story won't contribute to it at all, so I won't go there. But I said, y'all should be able to do a pretty decent consultation. Well, I came down to the lowest price I thought would be at cost for us, and they said they can't do it because they don't want to spend any of their savings.
Yeah. Yeah, there are occasions, and you see this more in the mainline churches. You see it in Episcopal churches. There's certain, tribes where, certain groups where you see this is more common,
Right.
where there is an endowment or a large reserve fund. That still doesn't negate the point that these churches often are too small for their facilities. And
Yes.
even if you have $1 million in some sort of account, if you have deferred maintenance of $5 million, it doesn't really matter that you have that million, because you've got so much catch up to do on your facility.
And if you live in Florida and your air conditions are all breaking down, you could have a significant deferred maintenance, like over $2 million, someone I know.
Well, yes, ours was $2.2 million to get us caught up just on the air conditioning system. Now, it's not just Florida. This is something that I am seeing across the nation, and it's one of the biggest struggles with churches of this size, is they grossly underestimate what it costs for them to get caught up with their facility in terms of deferred maintenance. Just a roof alone can put a church under. And that's really a lot of reasons why some of these churches close, and why some churches, Dad, I have seen churches of 5, 6, 7, 800 people closing.
Saw that recently. Yeah.
Yes, I've seen it several times, because they end up usually merging with a larger church is usually what happens there. They don't just close the doors. They just, they merge. If you have 60 people and, your church holds for a church of 6, you've got 60 people in a facility that holds 600. The ratio is the same as if you have 800 people in a church that holds 8,000, right?
Right.
So a lot of times it doesn't matter what size and the number of people. It's just that these facilities are too big for the people that are there. And even if you have a couple, 300, 400 people, you can still be in trouble with the facility.
Well, that's one of the issues. Let's shift to leadership, and let's start talking about leadership in these smaller churches and what some of the implications may be. A pastor has got to be a generalist. A pastor cannot just preach, cannot just evangelize, cannot just do pastoral care. In fact, that pastor may be called on many times just to go repair something in the facility.
I was there at Union Band Baptist Church. Herbie and I would do cleanup days. I painted the red bell. I replaced all the light bulbs because he didn't want to get on the ladder. You take out the garbage. You're a generalist. you're a custodian. You're a discipleship pastor. You're a student pastor. You're an accountant. You're a bookkeeper. You end up doing a lot of the things when it's just you at a church that is 60 people. But I think a lot of pastors find that very rewarding. I think it's stressful, certainly, and I think that pastors feel that, but I also think there are great rewards in being a generalist. And frankly, I think it's biblical. I think it's more biblical to be a generalist at a church than it is to be super, super specific about one thing that you do. Nothing wrong with that if that's what you do. But I think the paradigm of a shepherd was that you are a generalist by design.
Yeah, and this model means that there are going to be fewer full-time pastors. There are some churches that think they're paying full-time, but they're really not. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we pay that pastor $35,000 a year.
Well, full-time expectations is not full-time pay.
But some of these churches think that these small amounts are full-time pay.
I know. It is kind of sad. Yes,
we do. But then there need to be more co-vocational pastors. Lay involvement is going to have to be emphasized again and again and again. All of that can be very positive for a church. It doesn't have to be negative. It's just a different model, and we have to think of ways that are not the way it's always been.
And let's talk about trajectory here too. If you've declined from 600 to 60, you feel that. Like you really, really feel that. If you're in a church that's grown from 50 to 60,
Feels good.
those are the same size church, but you're talking about two completely different stories. And I feel for a lot of pastors that are inheriting certain situations, because a lot of churches, their story is, we used to be 200, we used to be 300, and now we're 50.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel that, and there is that tug in the wrong direction. There is a cultural tug that is weighing down the congregation because they have in their mind what they used to be. Now, the flip side of that is, if let's say you are at 50, you get to 60 or 70, which is a very reasonable expectation. You've got a whole another momentum. And I think that's the key for a lot of these churches. Does it frighten me that so many congregations are 60 people? No, not at all. 60 people can do a ton of good. 60 people, you get a group of 60 people doing the same thing together, goodness, you can change a whole community.
Exactly.
But you've got to have that momentum. You've got to have that trajectory that is a positive trajectory in order for you to sustain any sort of gospel work in your community. So to the churches that are 50 and 60, hey, you can do a lot of good. You can do a ton of good. You just got to get moving in that right direction. And it's getting to 60 people. It's getting to 70 people. It's adopting a school. It's doing mission work. It's doing outreach. And I think a lot of these churches can do a lot of good.
And just to give this a perspective, we're talking to a church in Miami right now about doing a consultation. I asked him what his attendance was at its peak, and I don't remember the year. It doesn't really matter. Several years ago, the peak was 600. I said, "Where are you now?" He said, "Almost 200. I said, "Oh, that feels bad." He said, "No, it doesn't feel bad." I said, "Why?" Because a year ago we were at 100.
Yeah.
And they've seen a turnaround. They've absolutely seen it. So the perspective is different. But here, to kind of wrap all this up, Sam, the median church, not the mega church, not even the large church, is the true picture of ministry reality today. And we need to be serving those churches, and we need to be working with them.
100%. And let me tell you, there is somebody that serves them very, very well, and that's Upward. And they've got this new running program. If you are a church in this median size, Upward can create a program for you. You can do a 5K challenge. They've got a running app. They can help you create a ministry around this. And obviously, they've got all sorts of sports programs for you to check out.
One church member could do this one, just one.
You find one gatekeeper, one leader. Upward can certainly help you create that momentum. And that's what I love about Upward is it's not just it's not just a program. They run good programs, but it's an outreach philosophy. And that is using sports to get into your community and to actually be in the lives of the people around you. Absolutely love Upward. Go check out Upward Running, and you can do that at upward.org/runcoach. Again, upward.org/runcoach. Link in the show notes. Hey, thanks everyone for tuning in to today's episode. As we looked at a very specific number, that median church size is getting smaller, but I believe a turnaround is just around the corner. I pray that for your church. We'll see you in the next episode.